Salailo Makwidir, and we're going to be switching gears now to a story that's dominating headlines across the globe, and rightly so. The killing of 5 journalists in Gaza, including one of Al Jazeera's most recognizable correspondents, Anas al-Sharif. The Israeli military admits it carried out the airstrike on a tent for media workers outside Al-Shifa Hospital in Gaza City on Sunday night. And they're alleging Sharif was linked to Hamas, a claim that Al Jazeera and press freedom groups strongly reject, and a claim that we've heard so many times as justification for these murders, essentially. Yesterday, hundreds attended the funeral, carrying the bodies wrapped in white sheets through the streets. His colleagues described Sharif as one of Gaza's bravest journalists. The UN, Reporters Without Borders, and the Committee to Protect Journalists have condemned the attack, calling it a grave breach of international law. With international reporters still barred from entering Gaza since October the 7th, 2023, Palestinian journalists like Sharif have carried the burden of documenting the war, often at the cost of their own lives. And according to the CPJ, more journalists have now been killed in Gaza, listen to this, than in both world wars, in Vietnam, Yugoslavia, and Afghanistan wars, all combined. And I think if that doesn't send a strong message about just the dire current state of affairs that we find ourselves in, I don't think anything will. And joining me now from Ramallah in the occupied West Bank to unpack the implications of press freedom is Dr. Juman Quneis. She's the lecturer of media at Birzeit University Doc. Thank you so much for joining us. Really, really appreciate your time, even if it's in unsavory circumstances, but this is a very, very important conversation to be had, especially looking at the attacks on our colleagues in the media in Gaza at the current moment.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me. Thank you for discussing this issue. Yeah, this crime has started not only in October 7 and after October 7. We have more than 400 journalists who were killed before October 7, not only in Gaza as well, but also in the West Bank. And the Palestinian journalists are targeted outside Palestine. Many of journalists were killed in Lebanon, also in Syria, and in different parts of the world. So Israel targets the journalists in the Palestinian journalists everywhere. And as you mentioned at the beginning, the aim is just to hide the truth. They don't want people to show what's going on, especially in Gaza. And now there are lots of crimes, as you can imagine, as you know, that are not known until now. They are still covered and not known because the international journalists are not allowed to be in Gaza and to interview people and to highlight what's going on. So they are targeting the Palestinian journalists. Anas was mentioned as one of the most courageous journalists in the world, because he didn't hesitate to go and to interview all people who are displaced, who are targeted, and he didn't hesitate to go to the dangerous places which were targeted by the Israeli warplanes. So that's why when they targeted them, it wasn't surprising actually, because many times they repeated and they said that he was part of Hamas or he was part of military groups. And maybe we all know that these are lies that they convey just to justify the killing of journalists. Lots of journalists were killed, and they didn't present any evidence showing that they are part of any group. So the main aim is just to cover and to hide the truth that the Palestinian journalists courageously are highlighting and are sending and filming in Gaza. So this is the main aim, not because this journalist or that journalist are part of any military group in Gaza.
No, definitely. And I want to touch, I think, on a point that you mentioned, and I think it hasn't clicked yet to, most around the world. The fact that international journalists are not allowed anymore. They've been barred from covering Gaza, from working in Gaza since October the 7th. And this has presented a reality where only Palestinian journalists, are able to work, are able to report and give us, the facts in real time regarding what's happening in Gaza at the current moment. When we are now at a space where there's a clear targeting of Palestinian journalists, never mind the fact that no foreign correspondents and journalists are allowed in Gaza anymore. What is the effect on global understanding of this genocide when foreign journalists are barred and local reporters are now targeted? Could we find ourselves, if there's no action, if there's no consequences against the Israeli state, could we find ourselves at a place where we are now getting the perspective of this genocide from an Israeli government's point of view? And how dangerous could that state of affairs be?
Since Israel occupied Palestine in 1948, they have a machine of media. They literally, it's a machine of media speaking in different languages, in different languages, and spreading their point of view all over the world. That's why what's going on in Gaza now is revealing the truth that Israel put all the effort along all of these years just to cover and to hide from the world. So, what you asked about is that they do all their best. They put lots of money just to show or to let their point of view to dominant on the other media outlets in the world, and that's why they want to hide what's going on in Gaza. So the dangerous thing is that the Palestinian journalists are the only people who are allowed just to cover what's going on in Gaza. And when these journalists are targeted, the truth is hidden as well, because the number of journalists who are working is in Gaza is reduced. I have now the numbers of journalists who were killed in Gaza only in 2 years only. It's 238 journalists. 238 journalists. You can imagine Gaza Strip, that small piece of land where 238 journalists were killed in 2 years only. So you can imagine that what kind of or how many messages were hidden because of these people, because of the killing of these people. So it's very dangerous because there are parts of Gaza Strip where no journalists could reach, and we don't have enough journalists to cover what's going on in Gaza. So this is really dangerous, and also denying international journalists from going to Gaza also let the spokesmen, the people, official people from Israel, appear more in the media outlets in the world, and this is what's happening. But luckily, we are lucky in Palestine because we have the mainstream media. We have the social media, we have the smartphones where the activists in Gaza are doing the same role as the journalists. They just film, they just put the footage. They don't say anything, any single word, just put the footage and film what's going on. And I feel like I believe, as you know, maybe that it's the real truth, because we don't need to say anything. They don't need to say one single word to add or to clarify what's going on. So we know that journalists were targeted. This high number was killed of journalists in Gaza, but still, luckily, we have the activists in Gaza who highlights and who show to the world what's going on by spreading their footage, their videos, their clips about everything. About every corner in Gaza, but it's not sufficient, because we need people to get them speaking about what's going on. We need um, different point of view in Gaza. And the Palestinians, all of them, even the political fractions, they say that please let them come, let them see by their eyes what's going on. So we don't have anything to hide. So the problem is that Israel don't let them let in Gaza, and I'm sure that after the end of the war, we don't know when, lots of crime will be revealed because
Mm.
we can't, the Palestinian journalists can't highlight everything, can't reveal everything now because it's too intense of news, what's going on in Gaza.
Most definitely. And I want to focus specifically on Anas al-Sharif's, death, his killing. Why was this one so significant? You've mentioned that there's been, more than 200 journalists to date that have been killed, but there are ones that always seem to stick out for some reason. Shireen Abu Akleh comes to mind. I think that was the beginning, some of the earlier stages where it has always been happening, the targeting of journalists, but this time around it was in full view of the world. And I think Anas Al Sharif's death, in a lot of ways, reminds me of, and I know the circumstances were different, but it reminds me of Shireen Abu Akleh's death. Why was this death so significant, especially looking at where we are in this genocide and how critical of a time it is, and just the need, for credible, recognizable, clear journalists to be present in Gaza at the current moment?
Yeah, many factor actually. You are talking about Al Jazeera satellite channel, whether people like it or not. It's the most popular channel in the Arab world. And Anas was the reporter of Al Jazeera after his colleague was killed. Also, there's another journalist who was killed, the correspondent of Al Jazeera before, and before that, Wael al-Dahdouh was targeted also, he and his family. So it's not only Anas, and many of Al Jazeera correspondents were targeted. Two of them were killed now. I'm talking about correspondents only, not cameramen, because other people were killed, like they were cameramen or assistants, or even the driver of the car of Al Jazeera satellite channel. So it's the most popular channel. And also, for now, they are talking about big and large operation against the city of Gaza, So Anas didn't leave Gaza city, although all the dangers which were there. I think that there sometimes he was only alone in different areas in Gaza city, because it was really very dangerous to stay there. But he stayed, and he interviewed all the people who stayed there and all the crimes committed there. So sometimes, or some analysts, people say that it's because they want to invade Gaza city, and that's why they don't want journalists who are very prominent to cover that.
Mm.
Another thing is that they accuse him of being part of Hamas or part of military groups, and this is, we know this is the lie that they spread and they talk about when they want to target somebody. It's he is a journalist. There was no evidence that he is part of any military group. So all of these things, but it's very important to mention that they really targeted many journalists other than Anas during this war. There is a journalist or a cameraman and activist as well called Hassan Slayeh. They
Mm.
targeted him inside a room in a hospital where he was treated from injuries. I mean, like they targeted by quadcopters, which is a small warplane that targets a person very comes to him or to her very closely, and they targeted him and they killed him inside a room of hospital. I mean, like, and even the tents of the journalists where they can see the sign of TV or or even, as you know, the UN teams, or civil defense, or, but I mean journalists, they see the sign of TV there, and they targeted many tens of journalists. They don't want the reality to be revealed from Gaza. And Anas was really courageous. He was really courageous, and this is the witness of many journalists in the world, and people who watch Anas and who see Anas, because he didn't hesitate to go to hospitals, to places, as you see in the photo that you are screening now, to targeted places where fire is there, where warplanes are around. So that's why they targeted him, and they mentioned that many times. They threatened him many times. They said that the spokesman of the Israeli army mentioned that they want to target him because he is part of a military group. And unfortunately, there are some media outlets who repeated that lie. But we, as Palestinians, we say, just give us the evidence that he was part of that group or any other group. There's no evidence. And yeah, that's it. So Anas is not the only case. He is not
Mm,
the only case to be targeted. And you mentioned my friend Shireen Abu Akleh. There was nothing there. They just targeted her without anything happened there, any clashes, any different thing. She was preparing herself just to go and to be in a safe place to cover if there will be anything, and they targeted her, and they confessed that they have done that. But because there's no accountability, I think that they will continue in committing these crimes, or these kinds of crimes. So it will not be only Anas. We will witness other journalists to be targeted by the Israelis, because they don't want the truth to be listened, or to be seen.
and I think that's the unfortunate part, the fact that when there's no consequences, things like this will continue to happen. Doc, unfortunately, we have run out of time, but just one last question for journalists across the world, in South Africa, in Europe, in whatever other country, who are watching this unfold in Gaza, the clear targeting of colleagues in the media space, because there's one thing about journalists and people that are media practitioners. It doesn't matter where you work and what kind of work you do, as long as you're a journalist and you're in space, you are a colleague. We see you as one of our own. What responsibilities do we now have as journalists from different parts of the world working for different media houses when it comes to this clear targeting of our colleagues in Gaza?
Yeah, thank you. I think that's what's happening now, what we see now, ab- about all that these movement of supporting Palestine and marching for Palestine and talking about Palestine. I think that journalists should talk more and should show their support, their empathy to the Palestinian journalists, especially in Gaza, who are targeted by the Israeli crimes. They should talk about that. And in my opinion, the very effective reaction towards this is to boycott the
Mm,
spokesman, the officials, the Israelis, not to let them on the air and to express their point of view, not because we don't want to hide part of the truth, no, at all, but because they have to stop targeting journalists. If they want to be on the air of any TV or radio, they have to respect that there are other radios and TVs where their journalists are killed. So just neutralize the journalists from any war or any conflict. So this is what journalists in the world should do. They should take action for that, not only just show their empathy or um, a refusal of to the killing of journalists, but they have to show real and effective steps against the Israelis who don't do anything because towards the journalists who are just telling the truth there. Yeah, I think that maybe in the future, I know that there are journalists who want to fold, you know, like many steps in the international court against Israel, and yeah, the legal part or legal path is also important. So
Mhm.
at least don't stop talking about Palestinian journalists, don't stop talking about your colleagues.
No, definitely. And I think we're going to leave it on that note, Doc. Thank you so much for joining us. Really, really appreciate you giving us your time in unpacking, dissecting, and talking about this very, very important topic. And I hope we chat soon. Stay strong. Really
Thank
appreciate it.
you. Thank you for
Good.
having me. Thank you very much.
Go. That was Dr. Juman Quneis, lecturer of media at Birzeit University out in the West Bank in Ramallah. That's where she's coming to us live from. And before we wrap this segment, I want to talk. I want to take a moment for something that goes, beyond the headlines and the stories. Here at Salam Media, we speak to so many of our colleagues in Gaza, not just on air, but off the record, away from the microphones and the cameras. We've shared, WhatsApp voice notes, laughs, in between some of the grim updates that they give us. And we've also shared quiet moments of humanity in the middle of the chaos that's currently unfolding in Gaza. They've told us about their families. They've, you know, took us in confidence regarding some of the fears that they have, the dreams, that they have, not only about themselves personally, but the country, Palestine, and what they hope it will be. And we've listened as friends. So losing Anas al-Sharif and the four other journalists killed with him, it's not just the loss of sources or reporters. It's the loss of people we know. There are journalists at this current moment who are contacts on my WhatsApp who, on an occasional basis, you just message and they would quickly respond. And all of a sudden, you hear that journalists have been killed and they're not responding to your messages anymore. You don't see their updates, status messages. This is getting personal. It's the loss of people we know, people who have opened their lives to us so that we can bring you the truth, and sometimes uncomfortably so. So, to our friends and colleagues still working in Gaza at the current moment, I know most of you follow us. We see you, we hear you, we honor your courage. And to those who have fallen, may your words never be silenced and your stories live on in all of us. Going to take a quick break. We'll be back with you after this.